we are involved with groups, involved with people, involved with music, and begin to see ourselves as a particular way, our self-perception, and our subconscious just accommodated that self-perception and made that self-perception a reality.
I tell my daughter all the time, why I'm so wise? Because I made so many mistakes. We know that. That's where our wisdom comes from. Come on, we were all kids. We all grew up. We all messed up.
And see, a lot of us are in situations today where we say, well, God, how come it was easier before? You know, it seemed easier before, but now it's hard. God, what are you trying to tell me? God's trying to tell you it's time to move. Get up out of that wilderness. That's not where you're supposed to be living.
Listen. Today we're going to talk about black power. It's not going to be harsh. This is going to be real. We're going to talk about Beyonce. We're going to talk about how we limit ourselves as black people. And we're going to see where this goes. What I want to suggest today is we're about 160 plus years after emancipation. And so the question is then, why are we still dealing with stuff? Why are there still racial issues, obvious racial issues? And what I'm going to suggest today might be kind of harsh for us. Because the reality is, yes, initially we did not cause the issues that we have in this nation today as black people. And as far as acting out and the issues that we have today, you know, as far as just acting crazy sometimes and maybe smoking some weed, drinking alcohol, all the stuff that we do, there is to me, it's like a PTSD. It's like issues that we've had over years, hundreds and hundreds of years, that have simply never been dealt with. Terrible situations, heinous situations, murders in our families, atrocities, and selling off of relatives and kids, and it just, whatever you can imagine, the worst you can imagine, that's part of many, as black people, our family trees, okay? And so imagine something terribly heinous as you can imagine, happening in that family unit, but never having been dealt with, that trauma always with that family. And then that family going ahead and having more kids, living through more situations like that. More situations of race, persecution, and oppression and all that. And then more kids being born, never being dealt with in the adults. And kids being born into that and them suffering through it, never being dealt with. Them growing up, having kids. And all that you're talking about generations and generations of undealt with, compounded exponentially PTSD. See, now we have soldiers coming back from maybe Iraq or a war zone or something, and they have PTSD from being in a year, 2 years, 3 years, or whatever, and they're giving counseling, they're giving drugs, they're giving computers and education, and all kinds of special treatment to help them be better. But black folks have never been treated, have never had counseling for this stuff. And so we look at some of our people today and we might be acting out, we might be acting crazy, but considering the circumstances, we've done pretty good for ourselves. Everything that we put our hand to do seriously, we excel in and surpass, our competitions. But it's just a matter of putting our hands to do these things. At times, we just don't. Sometimes it's drugs, sometimes it's alcohol, sometimes it's just a lifestyle that is destructive. But what I'm telling you today, if we could ever grasp a hold of this, I have like a 5-point, plan for black folks today. It's stop breaking any kind of laws, get healthy. Quit drinking, quit smoking weeds, do whatever we're doing. Quit break the laws, quit to get healthy, exercise, eat right, get educated, and get armed. If we do all these things, we'll take ourselves right out of the issues that we've been struggling with, man. What keeps us in a never-ending revolving cycle, one of the things is the drugs and the alcohol. It's keeping that buzz, keeping our minds not quite right, waiting for the next buzz, waiting for the next buzz. We're never able to get off this crazy merry-go-round. You got to stop. You got to stop. As well, taking care of ourselves. We got to get healthy. We can't be dealing with health issues, with heart issues, cholesterol issues, high blood pressure issues, diabetes issues, all these issues, and be focused on being well, because these issues that we're suffering with are keeping all of our attention. Okay? Breaking laws. Man, we understand there's institutions of racism. See, I don't care if somebody doesn't like me for a racial reason. I don't care if you want to call me names. That you're not affecting me. But the institutions of racism can affect me. The institution, the prison system, the judicial system, the neighborhood control issue. There are systems that are systems of racism, institutions of racism. And if we're committing crimes, if we're doing things that we're not supposed to be doing, we are simply placing ourselves at the mercy of an unjust system of racism. Stop committing any kind of crimes. Get educated. As I share in just about all of my programs, man, when Obama became president, I was 50 years old when it was announced on November 11th, 2008. And I was thinking, man, this guy's younger than me. Harvard educated, Harvard attorney, Harvard professor, senator from Chicago, and now president of the United States, and I had a high school diploma. I decided I was going to go to school just to get an associate degree so I could feel like I did something more. 10 years later, I'd earned my MBA. I earned my associate degree. I earned my bachelor degree. I earned an MBA. 10 years when I turned 60 years old. And this is the point of the education. I didn't do it for a job. I was making good money, so was my wife. But the purpose of that education, it wasn't even a realized purpose. It just came upon me, and that's what I'm sharing with you right now. The power of that education is it increased. It opened up my worldview. At every step, every class, every degree, my worldview expanded. Amazing. Man, I've written like 11 books. I'm working on some right now. My worldview, it's amazing. And as your worldview expands, your opportunities expand. As your worldview expands, you begin to see yourself in a different way. You see your world, your community in a different way. And you recognize it gives you power, it gives you energy to become more. To not to settle for less when more is available. That's what education will do for you. And the last thing is to be armed. To be armed. It's amazing to me. You know, I don't really consider myself political. Because until we are equal, we're simply being used by either party. Now, I'll vote based on what I think is in my best interest, but I will not consider myself a part of that party. Until there's total equality, we're just being used. But what amazes me are the black folks that are anti-gun. Really? Considering our history in this nation and the people who hate you have guns, why would you be anti-gun? Man, look at the stride that we made in the late 60s and the early 70s with the Black Panther Party for self-defense. They had guns. Do you know why they had guns? Because the Oakland police were brutalizing the citizens of Oakland. So the Panthers formed the Black Panther Party for self-defense to protect the citizens of Oakland, California. So they became armed. They brushed up on the laws. Many of them became law students, like Huey P. Newton. Many of them were law students. Bobby Seale. And they understood certain kinds of guns they could have in their possession, and they used them to protect themselves. That's around the time Governor Ronald Reagan began looking for some gun control, recognizing that a black man with an education and a gun is a threat. Not an illegal threat, but a threat which prevents himself from becoming victimized. Okay? That's what I'm talking about. It's very important that we recognize that we are the culprits to our own failures. And it's up to us to get over this mess, because they're not going to help you out of it. Begging isn't going to help. How many hundreds of years have we been begging? Pleading, asking. No, if it's yours and it's there, take it. That's what as I'm looking at this thing, to digress a little bit, this thing with Beyonce, the country cowgirl, Carter, or whatever she is, with their country songs. I listened to one of them, the Texas Hold'em song. That's pretty cool. I like it. But and interesting, I've never listened to any of Beyonce's songs. Only because, man, I'm going to be 66 this year, 2024. And I'm just not in the same generation as her. I'm not even the generation of, I go back into the 70s, man. That's where my music is, and I do all those artists of the 70s, and I do like jazz and that, but come on. Yeah, so I haven't listened to anything of Beyonce's, but I did listen to that. But I support her. It's amazing. Now, when you get on social media, you see all these people ragging on her, especially a bunch of country white folks. That ain't country, that ain't country. Look. And then you got black people trying to defend her. And same with like the Angel Reese thing versus the Caitlyn, whatever her name is, the basketball players and all that. We're always trying to defend, our... We got to stop doing that. We, as black people, if we have to come to the point where we don't care what they say. Now, I look at Beyonce over there. I don't know what her net worth is. Like, it's about it's about $1 billion. I don't know, between her and Jay-Z. A lot of money. And this Cowboy Carter thing is a business venture, and with effective marketing at the top of the charts. I mean, and people are complaining. White people, country and Western people, they're complaining. Now, they don't want to crack open a history book to recognize that black people invented country and Western music, because they're not really interested in reading that much. They just want to believe what they believe. Anything else is fake news, right? So I guess the point I'm trying to make is, don't concern yourself with what they say or what they think. Detractors. It's not gonna help you, and it's not gonna. And the person who you're trying to defend obviously doesn't need any help. But what we get from Beyonce, and we could use a whole lot of other people historically, but just use Beyonce because she's right now in the news with this Cowboy Carter thing, is what she has done is she saw what she wanted. Now, she knew there was going to be some backlash, because there's a group of people, country and Western white people, that think they own country and Western. Again, oblivious of the genesis, of the roots of the thing. But, so what did she do? She just took it and capitalized on it, monetized it, and is cleaning up. I saw a lot of people on Facebook, mad because that's not really country and Western, because people are just streaming the music. I don't hear it on the radio. And come on, man! For a record to hit #1 on billboards nowadays, it has to be streamed. It has to be downloaded. That's part of the process, the radio, man, those radios are becoming obsolete. So whenever you're listening on the radio, that is not an indication of anything. Okay, stuff evolves, and so even as I'm listening to Beyonce, she's like evolved, put a little bit of soul into that country music. But you know what's interesting? As Beyonce's come out with this thing, it turns out there are a whole bunch of other black country artists that are coming out that were there way before Cowboy Carter. But now they're getting exposure, and people are recognizing them, and they're benefiting from this as well. Pissing a whole bunch of people off. And let me tell you what, to be honest, my daughter, she's a freshman in college away in another city right now, HBCU. But when she was like the 10th grade on up, man, she started listening to country and Western music. Man, sometimes I get in the car, I'm like, honey, we're going to have to change that channel, Sometimes, I can listen to it sometimes, but most of the time I'm not in the mood for that. But she's for real. Whether they're just the secular or the Christian, country and Western stuff, she likes that type of music. She likes other type of music too. She's a musician. She's played Beethoven. She's played, she played Tamla Mann, and she's played every type of music, just like I have, growing up, playing the saxophone and all. But I'm just saying, black folks have always, there always been a segment of black folks that were country and Western. Come on, Google the Bill Pickett Rodeo. I mean, there are black cowboys, black cowgirls. Black folks have their own rodeo. I mean, I'm just saying. So don't worry about what other folks say. You just do you. Do what you feel like you need to do, especially if you can monetize it. We have to come to a point, look, of recognizing that nothing that they say or do affects us. Okay? And so if it makes you feel better, and maybe it makes me feel better, you know, growing up, you know, predominantly white situations, military bases, but predominantly white, you know, neighborhoods and all. As an adult, I just brought myself to a place where I just had to make myself better than them, okay, in every quantifiable measurement. Now, you know, some of you know we had a Spanish exchange student here for a year. She left about a year ago. And then her parents, and her grandparents came here. She became an American citizen while she was here. So they all came up here, and we visited for a while. The mother is a teacher, father's an engineer. And I was having a conversation with the mother, and I had this conversation. So why do you feel you have to be better than folks? She just didn't understand. So sometimes you have to, if you're dealing with folks who want to throw this superiority thing in your face, you just bring yourself to a place where every quantifiable measurement in their life is inferior to you. Yeah, it helps you feel better. Believe me. But it helps cure them of their misunderstanding. They're not superior to anyone. They think they are, but they're not. And you know all this, and let me see, we didn't talk about getting armed yet. We stayed on that education for a long time. But let's get back to the last thing, was to be armed. You know, I have an AR-15. I have a shotgun. I have stuff, okay? And I pray I never ever have to use them. But I'm always going to be protected. And you know, as being a mailman in the inner city for like 26 years before I transferred to management and then transferred to a driving route, most black folks have guns. What amazes me about all the ranting and raving of these guys, you know, is that they don't realize that they ain't the only one with guns, okay? And I know I get to get a little spoiled sometimes going out and shooting deer, because, you know, deer, I can hear Bruce Lee saying, deers don't shoot back. But they're getting beside themselves. They're thinking folks are walking around not being armed, but be armed. Okay? Don't be a proponent of, you know, no more guns. Because look, when I was at the post office, when I was a mailman in Dayton, I think I'd been there about 15 years. And I mean, we're all cool. Most mailmen, at least at that time and many now, were vets. You know, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine. So we have this, you know, connection, no matter what, you know, color skin we have, and no matter where we've come from. And I had this one friend, and he was like a Republican, and he was, you know, just, you know, but we were cool. He was a Navy guy. I was Air Force. And he was telling me about some of his friends. He had this one friend that all he would do is every time he'd go home after work, he'd just make bullets. And he had like 80,000 rounds, okay? So what I'm telling you is while we're sitting here talking about gun control, as black people, the people who hate you are making bullets. Okay? So quit. We don't need gun control. Okay, we need to purchase guns. It's like black folks too often. We're always a day late and a dollar short. Let's not be that here, okay? And we're getting ready to close. But I want to give some encouragement. Because black people are supermen and superwomen. We just don't walk in our superiority, okay? Even when you look at historically, I mean real historically, like the medicines and the astronomy and the mathematics and science and all that stuff, black people. Alexander the Great stole from the Egyptian library, and then suspiciously the library burned down. You know, I'm not saying he did it, it's just kind of suspicious. But I'm suggesting we still have within us that greatness. Look at black people in this nation, considering the treachery and the heinous hundreds of years that we had coming up in this nation. But look at every time black people put their hand to do something, they excel and they exceed everyone else. Look, music, of course. That's why those country and western folks, they don't have a clue. We invented that. But still, music. We see how gifted we are in music. As well in sports. Come on, now basketball used to be an all-white sport. Go figure, right? That's why they love Caitlin. It's like, you know, the hope, the great hope, right? But no, it used to be all... But look at black folks. Look what black folks have done to the sport of basketball. Okay? And baseball, white sport. Remember? Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier. Hockey. Well, hockey kind of still... they can have hockey. Still is, right? So that's sports. Anytime we, and track and field and any of that stuff, anytime we put our hand to do something, man, we excel whenever we get serious. Politics, the same. The military, the same. The Tuskegee Airmen was just one small group that was identified by accident, or else nobody would have known of the Tuskegee Airmen. All kinds of black folks were fighting through World War II. Come on now. Come on, you gonna tell me black folks fought in the Civil War? Black folks fought in the Spanish-American War. I mean, the toughest, the Rough Riders, Teddy Roosevelt. His guy, Buffalo Soldiers were half his men were the Buffalo Soldiers, black soldiers. World War I, black soldiers. Many of them went to France, fought for Europe. Blacks, American soldiers. You think when World War II came up, okay, now black people can't fight. After all that fighting black people have been doing forever, that's another lie that we bought into. Come on now. My father was a cannoneer in World War II. By the time it was over, he was a warrant officer. He joined when he was 18 years old. So I'm just saying, whatever we put our hand to do. My father ended up being an E9. Was in World War II, volunteered, went to Korea, and he was like in his 40s, and he volunteered and went to Vietnam around 65. My brother's the same, but military, everything we've excelled in. Politics, look at Obama. There's only been 40-some presidents. One of them is black. Obama. Now, you remember Obama in the debates, whether he was debating Democrats in the primary or he was debating Republicans in the general election. He dwarfed them all intellectually. A black man. Whatever we put our hand to do. And I guess that brings us back to that drug thing. See, that's the problem with the drugs. It's keeping us from being what we could be. We're the ones keeping ourselves down. That's why this whole idea about legalizing weed and all that, man. I mean, I know how good weed is or was back in the day. 38 years ago. But I'm just saying, what I also know and remember about weed is that it's very counterproductive to an individual getting done the things they need to get done. We don't need that in the black community. We will get ourselves, we will place ourselves and keep ourselves in a permanent lower class with the legalization of weed. It's not good. We need to stop doing drugs. We need to stop doing alcohol. Man, we're at war. Different kind of war, but we're at war. Man, if I was in a foxhole and we're fighting an enemy, you know, shooting at the enemy, and I happen to look over and your gun is on the ground and you're gone because it's Friday night. There ain't no Friday nights during war. We're still at war. And we need to get serious. We need to get ourselves in shape. We need to get ourselves healthy. We need to get ourselves educated. We need to get ourselves out of the justice system. We need to get ourselves armed. For real. There is hope only if we can get ourselves together as individuals. Complaining about stuff, begging for stuff, begging for more. Man, you know, I've been trying to help in our communities for 30 years now. Parkside, DeSoto Bass, and just going into neighborhoods. And even this program right here. And I've been on the air for 19 years now. Juvenile detention, 17 years. Just a pastor in a church, helping out, preaching, you know, doing stuff there as well. This is all that I've done. Outreach ministry every Saturday into the hood, into the project areas, doing that, sometimes by myself. And you know, I come to the conclusion that some of us just don't deserve to be well. I know that sounds kind of harsh. But what I'm suggesting is when I look back historically, even especially like through the civil rights movement, but even prior to that, through slavery, through emancipation and Jim Crow and all that stuff, but the civil rights movement is a good place to pinpoint. Well, we had a lot of folks, Medgar Evers, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X. We had a lot of people killed, murdered, because they gave the ultimate in the civil rights struggle for us. And I can't stop smoking weed, and that man gave up his livelihood or gave up his life, and I can't stop drinking alcohol, or I can't get myself in shape. That's it? To me, that's about as ridiculous as when I see these so-called patriots running around. And then I ask them, so what branch of the service were you in? Oh, I wasn't in. I wanted to. But, come on, don't call yourself a patriot. If you had the opportunity to join the military and you chose not to. For real. I ask every one of them that, man. You should see the embarrassed, shamed look they have on their face because they're calling themselves patriots, yet they refuse to serve their country in the military. And now they're patriots. When I got out of the military in 1979, and back then, they weren't thanking us for our service, okay? I find real empty men, grown men who have never served in the military thanking me for my service. I didn't do it for you, okay? But anyway, I had a time of my life because I made a lot of good friends. And, but anyway, we better stop here before I digress into some negativity. But anyway, I do want to thank you once again for joining me and listening. And I want to invite you to listen again. You take care. Bye.